If you like light shoes, this is the place to be. If you like heavy shoes, you really shouldn't. We're halfway through the year, so I put together a list of the 5 lightest basketball shoes that have all released in 2023 so far, and there's some nice ones on here. Let's get started with number 5. Kicking off the list, and the 5th lightest model of the year so far, is the newly released Nike Ja 1. These weigh in at 390 grams, for size 10.5. You know, there are, I wouldn't say a ton, but a good amount of shoes that kind of tend to be around 400 grams or in that range. And for reference, I will be using a size 10.5 for all the weights, just in case there's any questions. I mean, I show a literal clip of the shoes being weighed on a scale. I still have people telling me that they weighed something different in the comments, but that kind of comes with the territory, I guess. But really quick, just in case you don't make it to the end, you should. But in case you skip, every shoe will be kind of linked down below for an easy checkout on your end. Possible affiliate sales coming our way. But now let's go ahead and do this. So this is Ja Morant's first official shoe with Nike, and it's like kicking off his signature line in a really nice way. And the retail price isn't going to be bad at only $110. I hate to break it to you now, but that is going to be the cheapest shoe on this list. But it doesn't go up too much from there. But this got off to a great start, like I was saying, especially from the performance side. But this is a really clean looking model too. But this is a pretty stacked list today, and I like every model on here when it comes to like the look of the appearance to varying degrees. But this is the trivia colorway for the Ja 1s. They do have some questions on there about like his stats, his family, just different things like that. I thought that was a pretty cool touch. And I also like how, you know, you got that green Nike swoosh on there that actually never rounds off, just wraps around to the inside of the shoe and kind of connects to that swoosh there. So definitely some nice details, but now we'll go ahead and get into the performance. And this will probably be my last plug. I mean, I guess don't count on it because we're only half of one shoe in, but all the shoe had to do to make this list was be light. And the Nike and the Ja 1s are, but I do have an actual top 5 shoes of the year that's strictly going to be performance based, and that'll be coming out like next week or at least coming out soon. But I mean, like I said, the only way this shoe is going to make the list is if they're super light. That being said, these have a really nice performance too. I'm a big fan of the Ja 1. So we'll start off looking at the cushion. These are going to be using some lightweight Phylon in the midsole, paired with the top-loaded Zoom Air unit in the forefoot to give you some spring. And that's sort of what's going on the inside. But cushion is one of the best features on this shoe. I always like whenever you get a little extra spring in the forefoot, and it's not over the top bouncy, but you can feel it, which is honestly good enough for me. And for Ja, I mean, as you can tell, both of us, like, we spend a lot of time with our heads above the rim. That clip is always going to be funny to me. I wish I could do that on a 10-foot hoop, but the surrounding padding is going to be nice too, like especially for a lighter model, which I guess every shoe on this list will be. But using our durometer to check out the midsole, these were reading at a 36.5. The durometer just kind of measures the firmness or like stiffness, softness, whatever you want to call it, of the midsole. That doesn't always indicate how they play, but like I said, cushion is definitely a plus. Now we'll go ahead and look at the materials and the support. And I mean, the toe box, like along with the middle portion of the shoe, is going to be made out of a lightweight mesh, and then the overlays like cover the rest of the shoe are going to be made out of more of like this synthetic leather. So the materials honestly feel very quality. Definitely not a cheap feeling model anyways, but the upper does lean on the thinner side. But even with that, like, support still feels solid. That more filled in portion, kind of like around the lacing system, like in the middle of the shoe, that's just this midfoot lockdown system that just wraps over your foot, and the laces feed through there to make you feel like, I guess, locked down, kind of like what they're saying. But the heel counter is also going to be nice. You don't get any movement back there. So, and finishing off with the traction, I'll give you another shot at the pattern first. Like, the design's actually pretty cool. You have some straight lines, some arrows, just different stuff going on. But this is yet another positive on the Ja 1s. Like, traction is definitely going to be sticky, and that's backed by our squeak test. You can hear them making some noise on the court, and I will say they collect a little bit of dust, but I mean, whenever that happens, you might start slipping, but I mean, just wiping that, keeping your surface clean there, and, you know, they should work just great. But to finish off with sizing, I went true to size. The width is going to be standard. I wouldn't say they run narrow, but there's not a ton of room left over for the length, so you may be able to get away with like a half size up if you prefer more room to play in. But as you can see, from the cushion to the support to the traction, there's a lot of things to love about this shoe. But what I love and what actually got them on this list in the first place is just how crazy light they are to play in at 390 grams, which makes them the 5th lightest shoe that I played in this year. Coming in at number 4 is the Nike LeBron NXXT Gen. These are a few ticks down, weighing 384 grams for the same size. This is going to be a 10.5. And, you know, this was a new model that actually launched early this year. I want to say like around January, maybe early February, but this was created as more of a budget-friendly option for the LeBron 20s that retailed for $200. So the next gen is going to come in a little bit at a more cost-friendly price at $160. It's pretty average whenever it comes to basketball shoes in general, but I mean, if it helps, this is actually the most expensive shoe on the list today. So everything else is going to be like sandwiched in between. But this is another clean looking model. LeBron switched to more of a low top design for the 20s this year, and that did trickle down onto this model having like the same type of setup. And the triple white colorway is nice, but I just don't want to spend too much time there. We'll get straight into the performance breakdown. So taking a quick look at the cushioning first, the LeBron NXXT Gen uses a large 4-foot Zoom Air unit that's going to be curved to bend in multiple directions, and that's supposed to provide energy return and a fast responsive feel that moves naturally with your foot. And then along with that is going to be a top-loaded Zoom Air unit in the heel, and that's going to be like just for some additional cushioning. And look, this is a LeBron shoe, so you know we're still going. The foam in the midsole is going to be soft, smooth, just to help keep you low to the ground to enhance your feel on the court. And that's like the actual cushioning setup and just like the tech that's being used. I know that's a lot, but at the same time, like, that's never a bad thing. And just like you'd expect, the NXXT Gen is going to give you a comfortable feel on the court. I kind of liken it to the LeBron 20, just, you know, maybe turned down a little bit. Like the underfoot cushioning is soft, not quite as soft, but the sock liner is going to be just as padded and one of the more plush feels when you're talking about just like that surrounding area. But using our durometer to check out the midsole, these were reading at a 40 even. It's a little more stiff than the Ja ones, but that actually kind of lines up for me. I do give like a slight edge to Ja for cushioning, but it's also a different feel. Like the NXXT Gen is going to be more balanced compared to, you know, that slightly front-loaded setup on the Ja one. But now getting into the materials and the support, the upper is going to be made out of an open hole mesh material that is meant to be lightweight and durable. And these have a noticeably more secure feel to the upper. Like honestly, I was shocked because support was one of my only knocks on the LeBron 20 model. Like it felt like laterally my foot would just like shift more than I wanted it to. But the NXXT Gen is going to be reinforced and just a little bit more compact, so the support definitely improves, and that's going to be a positive, especially when you're talking about this light of a model. But wrapping it up with the traction, that is one of the cooler aspects to the shoe. So if you look at the pattern on the outsole, it's actually meant to be like represent a map of Akron, sort of like an ode to LeBron's roots and like just his city. But Nike still calls it this herringbone pattern. But LeBron's main line, I want to say it's been kind of average at best, you know, over the past few years, but the 20 set like a new and much better pace this year, and the NXXT Gen actually keeps that rolling. They collect dust a little bit, but it's a much stickier feel on the court, especially compared to how his shoes had been playing. And doing our squeak test, they don't make a ton of noise, but I want to say my overall experience for me was positive playing in these when it comes to traction. They bite the floor pretty well, but to finish off with sizing, the length and like the width are going to be pretty standard on this shoe. There are going to be some more narrow models on this list, but I wouldn't say this is one of them. So I mean, this was honestly a really fun shoe to check out this year with this new LeBron NXXT Gen model. For those that have played in the LeBron 20, you get something similar, but it's going to be for $40 cheaper, but you also get an extremely light shoe to hoop in at only 384 grams, which lands him at number 4. We've officially hit the midway point of the video. Next up is the third lightest shoe from 2023 so far, and now we're looking at a throwback. We got the Under Armour Curry 2 Low Flotro. And that's a mouthful, partially because like Flotro is basically Under Armour's version of retro. So this is the second shoe to come out of like Steph's main line. I don't know what they weighed the first time around, but it could not have been as light as 352 grams. That's what the Flotro edition for these Curry 2s weigh in at. And if you thought the other shoes were light, well, they are, but these are just even lighter. So the Curry 2 Low Flotro is going to be retailing for $150. Not bad in general, although I'm sure they were, you know, a little bit cheaper the first time around. I didn't get to play in Curry's line the first few models. So honestly, I like whenever brands go back through and kind of give you the chance to play in a shoe with the same look, even if it is a different feel. But technically, it's been updated, so they should feel a little bit better. And this colorway is nasty. He's my guy. Like that's the guy that I rock with. But this is like the All-Star edition. I really like that gold band running across the upper. And then baby blue is one of my favorite colors. So the color scheme is very nice to me. But we'll just go ahead and leave that alone. We'll go ahead and give you a quick rundown on just how they feel performance-wise. So a lot of retro models, honestly, I feel like they end up having a less than impressive on-court feel just from what I've like noticed. Like the LeBron 2, the LeBron 9, the T-Mac Resto Mod, the D-Rose Resto Mod. All those shoes were subpar in general to actually play in. But I can't say that about this Curry 2 Low Flotro. Like looking at the cushioning, these have Under Armour's new UA Flow cushioning tech meant to be super light and bouncy. Under Armour switched to this flow tech on Curry's main line on the 8s. And then it's been there for the last 3 models. It was super soft on the 8s, a little more responsive and like firm on the 9s. And then the 10s kind of fell somewhere in the middle. And I bring that up only to say the Curry 2 Low has like an all-around similar playing feel to the Curry 10s, but even just the cushioning alone. Like the padding isn't going to be all that deep under your foot, but I mean the insole doesn't give you a firm type of feeling either. And using our durometer to check out the midsole, these were reading at a 30 even, and that's a good amount softer than average. But I would say the cushioning is more so just going to like relate closer to your average feel. But now looking at the materials and the support, the upper is going to be made out of a combination of like mesh around the front half and like kind of running up the tongue. You get a little bit more of a plush design near the back, but the purpose of that was to just keep these lightweight and provide a seamless and comfortable fit. You're also going to have like an open cell foam sock liner that's, I guess, supposed to help a little bit with like your stepping comfort too. But I was actually impressed with the support on this shoe. It's one of the better aspects for this model whenever you factor in, just how light they are. There's no upper or like heel movement. I do feel like Under Armour does a pretty good job just in general whenever it comes to heel stability, and that's just from what I felt. But the gold overlays are going to help a little bit to minimize some of that lateral movement too, but that kind of leads us into the traction for the last category to cover. And as far as the materials go, the Curry 2 Low Flotro is using a durable UA flow outsole that's meant to provide a better on-court feel, so you can cut, stop, and start faster than ever before. And that's kind of how Under Armour lays it out for you on their website. And the durability part works for indoors. I haven't had any issues there, but if you use these outside, look, there might be chunks of foam flying everywhere off the bottom of these shoes by game 2. But I mean, if you really break it down, the main reason that the shoe is like so light, it's going to be simply because of that outsole material. Like, they moved off of using rubber. And like I said, this flow isn't built for outdoors, but it is supremely built for indoors. Like, the grip on any shoe that like uses this flow tech is amazing for traction on clean courts. If they get a little bit dirty, of course, you're gonna have some sliding issues occasionally, but you just have to keep them clean at that point. But another thing with this foam is that, they make virtually no noise on the court. Our squeak test was basically just a big waste of time. But to finish off with sizing, as always, I went true to my size, and that is what I'd recommend. The length is gonna be perfect, but they do run on the slightly narrow side, and you can kind of tell just from looking at them too on your foot that it's not gonna be a super wide fit. But overall, this is yet another nice shoe all the way around. Like, if I had to pick a weak point, the cushion could probably be a little bit softer, but they can't get much lighter than 352 grams after all. Like, only 2 shoes did on this list so far this year, which is what lands the Curry 2 Low Flotro at number 3. The second lightest shoe on the market to drop this year, and coming in as the runner-up, is the newly released Jordan Tatum 1. This is actually the newest shoe on this list. I want to say they only came out a few months ago, around like mid-April, and I simply could not believe just how light the shoe was, only weighing 352 grams for a size 10.5. I mean, there aren't many shoes in that like 350 gram range. Some in the 360s, you run into some 370s, but man, these things are light. But now we'll go ahead and get into the review, and these things are going to be retailing for, only $120. That's definitely not too bad. And, Jason Tatum has now officially kicked off his shoe line with Jordan Brand. He's joining like Luka and Zion as a few athletes that are just getting started with their signature lines, because, Russ has been there too, but he's more established, more like on his 6th model now. But the performance on the Tatum ones is like very elite. I like the colorway too, but you got some St. Louis vibes going on for the color scheme with the city flag on the back. And I actually grew up a few hours from Tatum, and a few of my buddies like went to go watch him play, and we're in the same age too, graduated the same year from high school, I think. My bad. Y'all probably don't care about that. So let's just give you a quick rundown on just how the Jordan Tatum 1 plays. So we'll look at the cushioning first, and the Tatum 1 is going to be using a Nike Zoom Air unit that's actually going to be visible from the bottom of the shoe in red. And that's going to be meant to help you get the ups that you're looking for without weighing you down. And then along with that is going to be some foam that's wrapped around a strong like plastic frame in the midsole. That's meant to give you more of like a lightweight structure. And I mean, from the jump, you're just off to a great start on this model. The cushioning isn't going to be spring-loaded to the effect of like the GT Cut 2, the Jordan 36 or 37, something like that. But it's like the next mini tier below. Like, with how light this shoe felt, I was a little bit nervous I was mistaking light for cheap, but you don't get a cheap feel at all. Like, the cushioning features are clearly there. I just read them off to you, but the actual performance is there too whenever you're looking at comfort. And using our durometer to check out the midsole, these were reading at a 42. That's pretty average for like overall cushioning, but like these are going to clear that reading by a ton. Like, they feel great all the way around, stock liner included. So now we'll go ahead and move on to support. And like, the lower the weight gets, the more like a focus you want to have on this section, or I guess it's more like support can become a little bit more of a liability the lighter a shoe gets. But that's just not an issue on the Tatum 1. The wing, or like that crown design on the side of the upper, is going to take away any shifting that your foot could do to like get outside of the footbed. Now that I look at it again, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Don 3. Like, I was calling that side setup like a crown design there too. And okay, I'm getting way too distracted on this shoe. But I mean, I even went as far, whenever it comes to support, I went as far as to like playing in each shoe with one lace all the way to the top. I left one open just to see if there was any heel movement, but honestly, it just wasn't there. I didn't feel it on either side. So that's another check in the good column. And that leaves us with traction now. And, you know, like we always do, we'll give you a shot at the pattern real quick. You don't even get the whole surface area down there because, you know, on this shoe, you're going to have those exposed zoom area units that's kind of taking up some of that. But the pattern is just going to be some wavy lines, not exactly an organized setup. And I've only played in them a few times, but I'm actually liking the traction so far. I mean, for me personally, it's been pretty consistent. The court was a little bit dirty, so I had some minor sliding, but most shoes kind of tend to play that way when you have some dust on there. But outside of that, you definitely have some grip. And when we did our squeak test, you know, it's not the loudest shoe, but they are making some noise. I don't know if I'd call like the traction great, but it's like better than good in my opinion. But to wrap it up with sizing, I did go true to size, and this is the first shoe that I played in where we're like, they're going to run, this is the first shoe I played in a while anyway, that is going to run a little bit big. And I'm mostly talking about the length. You have over a thumb's width left over at the end. So, I mean, maybe even some change. And then it's going to be standard to slightly narrow on the width. Kind of a tricky fit for wide footers, so keep that in mind, because if you're trying to go up or down in size, it might get affected there a little bit. But probably the worst part of this shoe is the sizing, because everything else about the Tatum one, it's just built to play well. They didn't even have to make them this light. That's just a major bonus at 352 grams, which makes them the second lightest shoe of the year so far. Topping the list as the lightest shoe to drop in 2023 is another Under Armour throwback model in the Curry 1 Low Flotro. This is just another one of Steph's shoes from his original line that Under Armour kind of revamped and gave it that new tech. But in the meantime, they created a crazy light shoe with the size 10.5 only weighing 344 grams, making that officially the lightest shoe that I've ever played in. And then same thing as the Curry 2s that actually made this list as well, like a few shoes ago. The new cushioning setup is probably the main reason why, but I'll go ahead and just get right into the overview and the breakdown. But I mean, just in case, here's a few clips to kind of give you a better look at them. It is going to be the same design as the Curry 1, so you've had roughly 10 years to take a peek. But now we'll get into the performance side. The Curry 1 Low Flotro is going to be, you know, just like the name suggests, using some of UA's flow foam that is meant to be, you know, super light, bouncy, and provide insane grip. And, you know, if that layout sounds familiar, it's because we just talked about it 2 shoes ago. And this shoe has virtually the same feel as the Curry 2 Low Flotro. It's going to be decent padding in the footbed, but of course nothing over the top. But using our durometer to check out the midsole, the reading came back at a 34.5. That's a little bit up from the Curry 2s, but it's still going to be softer like in general than average. But that foam always is. Cushion's just nice, but at the same time, it's not going to be the highlight. So now we'll go ahead and look at the materials and the support. And the upper is probably going to be, you know, the most thin compared to other shoes that made this list. It is going to be made out of a molded textile that's meant to be lightweight and breathable. We've pretty clearly established that they're lightweight. That's how you get the top spot on this list. But I was a little bit nervous just about how the upper was going to be, like just on my harder cuts and stuff like that. But honestly, nothing really moved. Maybe a little bit in the heel, but not enough to like be concerning. Like I said, Under Armour does pretty good back there. So now we'll finish off with the traction. The outsole is going to be that UA flow, like the same thing that the Curry 2s had. But making the switch to this foam material is going to be what, you know, all of these Under Armour shoes do to get so light. Like all of Curry's recent models, the Future X1 and 2s, just anything with that flow foam is just amazing because the traction has a really nice feel on the court. I mean, they collect a little bit of dust, but at the same time, that's what most shoes do. That's honestly the only time you slide, but one swipe, you should be, you know, right back at it. But the same applies to the Curry 2s. This is not going to be an outdoor model. Foam, chunks of it, just going to start flying everywhere. So I'd probably keep these indoors. But to finish off with sizing, I did go true to size, and these run on the somewhat narrow side, and your toes go straight up to the end. I was a little bit nervous, but surprisingly, the fit didn't end up bothering me. Still, I'd maybe recommend going a half size up if you prefer more space to play in, but this is just going to be a nice all-around shoe. The cushion is not going to be bad, but from the support to the traction, they just keep getting better. But most of all, they're about as light as you can get a basketball shoe at 344 grams, which makes them the lightest shoe of 2023 so far. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to throw us a follow or a sub if you like this video. And if you're interested in buying any of the shoes that we hit on today and you want to support our channel, just click the link here on screen or have links down below or in our bio. So feel free to check that out. But that wraps up this top 5. Till next time, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.